So today we will talk about the topic you see already on the screen, and it's the nice name from resistance to readiness. And change is something that is very important. And I forgot something, Natalia. Before you send out the white paper, please, we have to talk again. I have seen something. We have to do a major change on that. Yeah.
Okay, no problem.
Yeah, there's a big mistake in the sequence, so we have to change that. Okay, good. Sorry for that interruption. And so when we talk about change here from resistance, which we sometimes see, to readiness, how we can get that, I think I've found some quite interesting things I would like to share with you. And by the way, Natalia was now very robust for this surprise, and sometimes changes pop up out of the blue. And there is also some mistakes already in that, how I've done that, because there was no context given why we need to change something in the white paper that was properly prepared over the last days. It was no room for any participation in discussion. Reinhard, what were you talking about? Yeah, it was just rush. There's something that we change here. Yeah, why? Okay. But before I start here going into these details, let me talk about a little bit about MCP. Some of you know MCP quite well. And so we are a consulting company headquartered in the UK and having also partner network across the globe, mainly in Europe and the US. That we can use for all our projects, and have a lot of friends working here together with us in the different countries. So when we talk about change and what are the success factors, and what I on purpose have not used as a success factor in this attempt to ask Natalia to change something in our white paper, I have provided no meaning and no context. It was just confusing. And you reacted very robustly. I see very often people being shocked by my ideas and when I do this mistake. The other thing is, there was not a room for participation. You just said, maybe there will be something I can influence, but it was not that clear. Another thing was to create the emotional readiness, because I know there were a lot of emotions in producing the white paper, and then why should we change something here? Yeah, this was not correct. And another factor I used a little bit is about there's an urgency. Before you send it out, we have to do something. Yeah, and this creates attraction. Everybody gets aware, oh, there's something we have to take care of. This also helps to go through the change. And another big element was that you have seen here was this level of trust. Yeah, so Natalia would be much more shocked if this comes from somebody else than from myself. I think we have a very good working relationship, and this basis of trust is a very fundamental thing in changes. And the other thing is, the last thing on the slide is this the effect? Is this reasonable, or is it a huge change in everything? Yeah, and changing a document, Natalia, you're quite used to that we have these requests, and so it was not that big. If I say, well, you have to relocate from UK now to somewhere else, please go to. You can choose the country. It would be much more shocking for you, and so it was also in this case easier for you to take it, and therefore the reaction was not so bad. But anyhow, why is change an important topic? Yeah? And going back to Charles Darwin, who said, and he was cited to say that, but he hasn't really said that. So it's just a summary that it's not the strongest species that survives. It's not the most intelligent. It's just the one that is most responsive to change. So the one that is able to come along with all these changes or the need for changes. This is the species that will survive, that's the company that will survive, that's the team that will survive. And so it's important that we are able to manage change. And a change always starts in a quite quiet way. And the quiet way could be that there are some rumors. Is this true what I heard at the coffee machine? Is this something? No, I can't believe that this change will come in our company. And if you work in a global corporation, a lot of these rumors moving around, and they say, well, if this comes, this will be hard for us. And then there will be official communication, and then this could lead to a shock. Now, this rumor turned out to be true. Not as bad as the rumor itself, a little bit less than that, but there is something like a shock. And so the energy level goes down. Everybody is frozen by the shock and say, okay, we have no idea how the future can look like. And then there will be a phase of very high activeness, but it's not activeness supporting the change, it's activeness fighting against the change. And if this is a change in the organizational structure, for example, people start to prove that the current way of working is much better than anything else that will come. And so they put a lot of energy in making the current way of working, that was a little bit a weak one, now to make it really strong, to defend any upcoming change and to show that was not a good idea. You have to change your mind. We have to stay with what we have. But over time, people realize that their power is not strong enough to avoid the change. And so they get to a level of a rational acceptance of things happening. But rational acceptance is nothing that is sufficient to come along with the change. What we need as human beings is emotional acceptance. And this emotional acceptance is here in a valley. So you know all the valley of tears. So it's in the valley where we have given up to have emotions against the change, and then this opens us the door for moving forward. And this moving forward could be to understand that every coin has two sides, that there is some positive elements also in there, and you start to cope with the situation, to come along with the situation, and it will move up. Maybe still some confusion in trying and testing and not being perfect in the new way of working, but getting better and better, and then it gets integration into normal life. So that's the change curve, a lot of change of energy up and down. And it's the change from red to green. I call it that this is the change from being the victim to being the creator, to contribute, to support, to help, to make it really working. So let me talk a little bit why there is this resistance in an organization. And this is something that is more than natural. And Edgar Schein can help us here with his explanation what an organizational culture is. And he said it's the shared, unspoken basic assumptions a group develops when learning to solve problems of external adaptation and internal integration, becoming a valid way to perceive, think, and feel with the organization. This means a group has collected experience in what makes the group successful. And they have proven over time again and again that this is exactly the right way to do that. And now maybe a new person comes into the team, new hire. and the new hire has a lot of ideas that are not in sync with the culture of the organization. What will happen? The new person will be trained to behave as the others do, because any change of the behavior would be a risk for the continuation of the success. However, the success was based on maybe a historical situation. And if the circumstances change, maybe the previous or the so far executed culture is not the culture that is the right frame for being successful in the future. And so nobody wants to hear that. And if even there's a proof and say, well, look, this is working better. I have done this in another company. No. We had so many examples where exactly this was the wrong way to do that. We stay with our previous way of doing that. So that's the reason for the resistance in the organization. And it's quite natural, and don't be surprised by that. It's very, very normal. However, I think all of you have been part of a change, of a joyful change, where you were full of energy, positive energy, and supporting that on things that you decided on your own to change something. There was a day you said, today is the day I'm ready to try something new. I want to go into that. And maybe an example from our field here in the world of maintenance and asset management is that you had a lot of data available, but it was not really used for analysis. And one day you said, I can't stand this situation. Let's go into the data. Let's find out what we can read from the data, what we can learn from the data. Let's do that. And I will start myself. I don't need anybody for that. I have access to the data. I do that. And you will try, you will do your experiments, and you will find some positive results, and you will be very proud of these. And this will give you more momentum in moving forward. So what is the difference now? Why is it not the fear where there's no shock? Where's the difference coming from? Let's have a look on that. I phrase it like that. Change will be fun if you shape it yourself. Change is threatening when it comes from the outside. That's the difference. And if we go back to our change curve, how does it look in this self-triggered change? Maybe there's a little concern at the beginning, a little bit resistant. Should I really start now, or can I do it tomorrow? But then you get this click. I will do this right now. Put everything off your desk, focus on that one, take the data on your computer, open whatever you use to analyze the data, and you start working on that. And you get some results. You are surprised by the results. You are energized by the results. And maybe sometimes confused, and you start from another direction and say, oh, now I understand it, and you get something out of that. So all this negative phase here is not there. You're just moving upwards, and you have a lot of work, but also a lot of fun on that. So the question is, when we compare the two curves here, how can we help our team, our people around us, to avoid the red curve and to be more on the side of the green curve? How can we help them to have this positive attitude in this change situation instead of going through all these up and downs on the red curve? However, let's walk in the boots of a maintenance manager. If you have to convince your team of something that has entered your organization top down, so your boss told you you have to do this now, and this is moving in this direction, and you have to do it now with your team, and you want to have the green curve, but you are not ready for that, because we have a situation that you have to be convinced or at least supporting for this change before you are ready to talk to your people. So you have to better understand what is coming. What is the flexibility? What is the area you can move around with your team in this task to use this better in the development? So you will develop something like a plan how to do that. And this plan will stay in the end in your drawer. Why? Because you will start to talk to your people, and it will be a big barrier for involvement of your people if you have a fixed plan to roll out. They will show a lot of resistance, and this will be a wall against you, and therefore it's not the right way. So it is better that you understand that in this transition from the different levels, the different hierarchy levels in the organization, that you in the middle of the organization have to flatten your curve first before you're ready to help your employees in moving forward. And how can you get your team on board? So you will communicate what is required. There will be some frame conditions that are not debatable. You just have to take them as they are. And you will also be clear in that there will be the need for action. But you will also help them to understand that there is a flexibility or some space for design and development of how to do the change. Yeah, it's just frame conditions that are set, and detect together with your team what is possible to be designed by the team themselves. And based on that, I see very often the situation that the team says, well, you are so vague, give us more input what we really should do. Don't do that, because it's a trap. Yeah, it's a trap that will lead you in a direction that you state, and they will discuss all the tiny details you have formulated based on your plan, and they will discuss and explain that this will not work. And so if you say, no, please contribute in this development space that we have got, contribute to our change, then you get the active participation. It will take some time to get the active participation. And maybe the team develops some ideas that still fit to the frame circumstances, but differ from your ideas. And please be aware that the ideas that are supported by your team can be the stronger ideas, have the stronger support compared to your ideas that are well thought. And so give the team a chance to participate, and it will help you to have active members that will overcome the new requirements and make something good out of that. And maybe another way to see it is in a corporate situation, if there's a top-down activity hitting a lot of sites, maybe being the fastest one in the change is also an opportunity to influence it much more than being the last one. And this could be also an offer for your team to say, well, if we do the pilot, we can have higher influence, we can design it more in a way that we like it. And so let's come on, let's do something faster than the others. So the solution can be built out of blocks, elements, put together, contributed from different team members. And if it's their baby, they will support their baby. And if it's just partially their baby, they will support it. So get the people active and help them to support whatever is needed. If you have quiet team members, and you will have a lot of quiet team members, just in the wait and see mode, try to activate them in one-to-one talks. Find out what they are thinking. This will help you also to better understand what to take care of, and this will be a good input. Don't ignore the silent ones. it's not enough to listen to the loud supporters or to the loud opposition. We can look on this also in a little bit a different way, but I think it's with very high correlation to what I've said so far. There's this CARF model of Dr. David Rock that stated these are the 5 elements you have to ensure that the state exchange is successful. And that means that you have to provide a certain positive status to all people that are stakeholders in that are concerned by this activity. If you give them a value and show that they are important in developing this further, it's much easier for them to support it. If their status is not questioned by the change, by the way. And the other thing is certainty. If it's more clear what's happening, what's coming, then it is easier to take it. If it's very vague and say, Natalia, we will change the white paper, and you have no idea what's about and what will happen, you will be maybe shocked. And if it's very clear and say, well, I want to have this little tiny thing addressed, and then it's perfect, then you will support it. And also the other thing is the autonomy. We have discussed this paper a lot, and together, all 3 of us had the possibility to influence it and to contribute to that, and not being limited so much. The relatedness, to have the feeling that you belong to this, what is happening, and it's not you're outside of that and you're just the victim. No, you're part of the creator team and you're developing that. That makes it's easier for team members to come on board. And last but not least, the fairness. If it is a balanced change and it's not just bringing benefit for one side and all the negative things for the other side, then it will be also much better support. So that's what Dr. Rock meant here, that these 5 factors are essential. And maybe it sounds a little bit like theory to support all of them, but it's very good to have it in the back of your head and to think about those in moving forward. So also giving enough time for discussion, let me summarize here. What do we need for supporting successful change? Help everybody and help yourself to change from a victim position into a creator position. Everybody can change it for himself, for herself, but maybe you can also help the people a little bit to understand that it is much better to be on the creator side than on the victim side. Another important thing is, if you have doubts, talk about that. Don't jeopardize your trust level that you have created over time by lying, not telling the truth. Don't do that. Keep your level of trust and continue on that. Show the opportunities that are available. Help them to understand those. Help your team members to build on these opportunities. Accept together constraints. So don't waste the time on talking about what is not changeable. Change the things that you can influence. Recognize that there's a scope for action and you can focus on that, and please be aware of the change curves that you have seen to make the best out of that together with your team.